Morning on TVC News. I am Abosadi Aderemi. On the program today, we are exploring two topics. One is about energy, as Nigeria's national power grid suffered a second collapse within the first 27 days of the year 2026. And second, we will spotlight politics in Kano State as the Governor Abba Yusuf formally joins the All Progressives Congress following his defection from the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP. But now to the first discussion. On Tuesday, the national power grid crashed. It is the second time in 5 days. It had earlier collapsed on Friday, 23rd of January, the first incident in the year 2026. Before then, it collapsed on the 29th of December 2025. Joining me on the show for the discussion today is Professor Yemi Oke, SAN. He is a professor of energy, electricity law, University of Lagos. Prof, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, sincere thanks for having me.
But Prof, Nigeria has witnessed a second national power grid collapse, and it all happened within, these two incidents have happened within 4 days apart. And what do you think could be responsible for these incidents?
Again, thank you. And when you talk of grid collapses, and I've said several times about factors, I've mentioned it, describing it, analyzing it, and we can't be tired of analyzing it. The challenge of Nigeria's grid infrastructure is human built. If it's technical, it is human built. If it's regulatory, it is human built. If it's finance, it is human built. It is whatever it is human built. A grid will collapse due to a number of reasons. One, if there is inconsistency in what is generated and what is distributed, the grid might collapse. If there is fluctuation in gas supply, the grid might collapse. Grid might collapse due to natural occurrences, particularly when the grid is weak, like Nigeria's grid infrastructure, which is very old. We're going to have triggering effects, recurring, and grid naturally collapse. These are technical issues that might not be understood by ordinary Nigeria. But let me try and break it down. Because power cannot be stopped, so once it is generated, it is transmitted to the end users. And you've heard of cases of load rejection at some discos. Discos that ought to take 1,000 megawatt for financial reasons might not be able to take that, even though the demand is more than that. They're able to take the quantum that they know they can generate enough resources, and they generate and sell to high-end users, meaning corporate commercial users, those are living in high expensive neighborhood who can pay commercial tariff rates. You may call it band A, even if it's band A plus. So they take the quantum that they can pay for, and they reject the rest. Because we can't store megawatts, that could trigger a collapse of the grid. Sometimes when we had cases of vandals and sabotage going against grid assets, we've had cases like that, particularly up north, where government had to deploy the military to provide surveillance to those places. That could be a factor. If there is a kind of shortfall in the quantum of gas we need to power, grid might collapse. There's so many technical reasons why grid collapse. But
all right, Prof.
The one that affects Nigeria the most, I'm hearing you.
Yes, which one affects Nigeria the most?
The one that affects Nigeria the most is the fact that Nigeria's grid infrastructure is weak. And we've had series of intervention at the level of government, even that we have had called to mention in your studio. We've had Nigerian government engaging Manitoba Hydro International for the purpose of a particular contract. They call it transmission management contract to come and manage the transmission structure. Transmission, as you know, is still in the hands of the federal government of Nigeria. So government is still responsible for that. Then the Manitoba couldn't stay because of a number of reasons, which I also alluded to in my paper. They left. They brought Siemens.
All
Siemens has
right,
been here
Prof.
for almost 10 years.
Yes,
Yes,
Prof.
please.
You know what? We need to take a quick break. When we return from that break, we will take the conversation from where you have just dropped it, and then we'll explore this further and see how we can proffer solutions and how we can actually prevent these collapses and how we can ensure that Nigerians all across have access to electricity. Thank you, and please stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment. Power grid suffered its second collapse in the year on Tuesday. That was yesterday. And we know that this has actually been traced to an incident at the Gombe station, which was said to have resulted in a partial system collapse. That the Nigerian Independent System Operator confirmed that it was traced to a voltage disturbance at the Gombe transmission substation. My guest, Professor Yemi Oke, SAN, a professor of energy and electricity law at the University of Lagos. Earlier, Prof was talking about the fact that it could be due to a variety of reasons, whether it's the discos being unable to absorb the power that's been generated, or a case of having the grid, the infrastructure being really old. And Prof did mention that that is one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest challenges that we as a country are facing. Prof, so let's take it from there now. This particular incident, the second grid collapse, has been traced to a disturbance at the Gombe station. Perhaps we should even talk about this issue of a collapse and disturbance. Is it that, are these words used interchangeably, or is disturbance used to maybe show that it's a subtle and not so serious situation? Or what exactly is the difference in these, in the choice of these words to describe what we have when there is blackout?
Disturbance could be could be due to a number of reasons. Disturbance could be as a result of vandals. When you have vandalism, particularly in that part of the country, as I mentioned earlier, we've had cases where Nigerian government has had to deploy military to man the forest where we have grid infrastructure. We've had series of, in several cases, where some of those assets were carted away by these criminal elements. And of course, it will lead to shutdown. Disturbance could be as a result of low gas supply. It could be human induced, particularly when we have cases of theft of those vital assets. But it could also, but in this particular case, the feeders that we have in Gombe, disturbance will also be as a result of the weakness in the infrastructure, in the transmission infrastructure around that particular houses. Whichever way, we shouldn't be talking about all these collapses at this stage. In fact, predicted intervention at the level of the federal government through Manitoba Hydro, as I said, they left due to other reasons. Then Siemens was supposed to come and dig the grid infrastructure. 10 years ago, we are still struggling. Immediately, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came on board. He traveled to Germany, met the German Chancellor. He met with the management of Siemens Group to talk particularly about the transfer management contract in Nigeria, which is still ongoing.
By bringing in experts to handle this. Why have these?
Now, because states can now also set up their home loan grid of grid solution so that we reduce pressure on the national grid. National grid was established doing enough. When the government current administration came on board, grid collapses started declining. It declined to 14, in 2023 thereabout. In 2023 thereabout. Then in 2024, it further declined. In 2025, we saw a decline. But in January 2026, we started seeing economic increase in the currency of dollars, and that's not acceptable. The rate at which we are going now, we pass in January. It means we pass in January. It means we go back to the era of having 25, 30 great collapses in a year with all sense of responsibility. Because we can't, power now is a decentralized, is a concurrent item, both for federal government and state government. We're getting to REM where if you don't do the needful, state A may be on 24 electricity, while state B may be in business. States are going to start to be competitive based on their own complete advantages, particularly their handling of the power sector. That will happen. It's not happening yet. That will eventually happen because that's what we now have in the legal framework that we're currently operating. We expected states to have taken steps. And the reason is that we are not expecting states to dig their hands into their budgetary allocation to fund power. Power investment is huge, it's expensive. We expected those states to take steps to make their respective states bankable. Bankability is what will make investors come. Investors are ready to invest anywhere. Investors are even willing and ready to invest in Sambisa Forest to generate electricity if that will bring money to their tables. They will reinforce themselves, put in place appropriate security measures to generate power there. That is the way an average investor would think. Why are they not coming? They are not coming because there's not enough money to generate. The environment is not as attractive yet. Why is the environment not attractive? Because we have not done the needful.
Now let's talk about doing the
that is
needful.
not prudent in his own policies.
Yes, let's,
that is
Prof.
not transparent in the management of his financials. His contractual obligation and other factors will not see investors come and drop their money and invest in their state. States that are competitive, states that are prudently managed, states that respect their contractual obligations will start to see investors entering and doing stuff in their state. It's natural.
So this is now a blanket statement, Prof, because you seem to have put all the 36 states, into the same bag. Is it all of them that actually fall short of this standard, or are there some who are making genuine efforts and whose efforts are actually beginning to pay off?
I don't want to draw an advocacy for some of the states, but I will single out Lagos. I will also single out Abia. I know Enugu is in the forefront. I know it is also digging in structures. I know some states are trying to take steps, even if it's in the north. Yeah, I mean, we've seen motion without the movement. That's how best I can describe it. We've seen a kind of an intention to do something, but they've not really done that. So we'll see them rather slow more than 2 years now is we have a decentralized regime. Some states should have been self-sufficient. But what I foresee is a situation in which some states will be able to put their house together, attract investors, and the consumers will be able to pay reasonable rate for stable electricity. Once that happens, it's also almost a natural trend that investors will come if they are making money. But as we speak, existing investors are not smiling. They are not smiling, and the market is not attractive. If you look at the lowest level, which is the consumers, the Nigerians are still struggling with uh, supply meters. They don't supply meters. Recently, federal government says meters should be distributed free. Some vehicles are saying, no, that is not realistic. We're still talking about meter bypass. We're still talking about prepaid meter, estimated billing. We're still talking about mundane things. In the 21st century, we're lagging behind. Let's leave the consumers. Let's talk about the discourse. A lot of the discourse are very vulnerable. Their financial situation is is kind of deplorable. Not
so should they remain in business?
90% of the discos, 90% of the discos are technically insolvent. I've been saying this and I've been saying it for several years. Even recently, a company just acquired a co disco. Abuja is under receivership, Benin is under receivership, Kano, Kaduna is under receivership, Yola, nobody is touching it. I can go on. The picture at the level of the disco is scary.
Should these discos continue operation? Sorry, Prof. I just really had to come in. If these discos are practically insolvent, as you have described, should they then still continue, managing the distribution companies, or should the leadership change, should the ownership change such that we can, put in the needed energy and resources to make power available for Nigerians?
I will go into that question. Let me just drop this one. I will go into that particular question you asked me. Let's go to the Gencos. Gencos, of course, the discos, they're under remit, they are in debt, their financial situation is not that improving, they're under receivership, they're under technical management, insolvency. We call those ones insolvency. The Gencos, too, federal government is allegedly holding them 4 trillion naira. That's huge. And they are struggling. And federal government has paid well over 2 trillion naira in a year for power subsidy. All those are not things that will encourage an investor. What do we need to do? So let's also talk of regulatory environment. The regulator is not doing enough. We have TCN that challenge, NASO that challenge. You can see the picture. Let's not go back to the question you asked me about the discourse. And I've said, and I'm still saying this, unless and until we go for another round of acquisition and financing in the power sector, particularly of the discourse, will still be struggling. Unfortunately, the government has some stake in those entities. Does it not worry you as a Nigerian that before we privatize, we were doing less than 5,000 megawatts on average? After privatization of several years, we are doing less than 4,000 actual megawatts as a country. Does it not worry, give you serious concern that Nigerian government is not spending more in a supposedly privatized power sector than it was spending when it wasn't privatized? I can go on and go on and go. These are challenges that put out there in the public domain.
Indeed, there are big challenges, Prof. I hear you, Prof. There are big challenges, very big challenges, really. And then we really do need the discos and everyone involved to set up. But then also, we have been talking about power generation from gas, those sources, the grid. What about other sources? Can we explore other sources? Can we explore wind? Can we explore the sun? What can we do to also, because, and you will agree also that, focus is shifting from some aspect. You have been hammering on the fact that this is the 21st century. The world is, global technology is evolving. What other sources can we explore to sustainably ensure that we have power?
Well, see, when you talk of power, renewables in Nigeria might not be able to do the magic. Renewable is fine for homes and offices, and a lot of the Nigerians are deploying the use of solar. And we've advocated extensive solarization. Recently, the federal government came up with a policy that it should manufacture solar panels in Nigeria. We've seen good initiatives that are there, but those are not enough. Most Nigerians now have multiple sources of energy, from batteries, we call inverters, and solar panels. And they're scaling up the use or deployment of renewable alternatives. Hydro is also renewable. We have many hydros coming on board. We have mobile hydros. We have distribution technologies generating electricity from forests. There are so many options.
Yeah, Prof, I need to place you on hold for just a moment. I need to make an announcement. We are taking a break from our regular programming to bring you a live broadcast from Abuja at the NCC head office, where the tax reforms town hall meeting is taking place, and it is focused on the recently introduced tax laws, their implications for individuals, businesses, and the Nigerian economy. This morning, our news programs and other news and programs continue on our digital channels, on our websites, www.tvcnews.tv, and other platforms. Please stay with us. For the break, you were talking about that renewable energy might not be able to serve the entire country. Let's take it from there.
My suggestion was that we need to amass all the alternatives, all the options. We never find as a stopgap measure to beef up, to support, or supplement the current challenges we have. There's no doubt. And I said homes that a lot of homes are not using that, including where I am now. We're on battery solar. That said, but for industrial and commercial users, solar or renewables might not be immediately sufficient for them until and unless it scale up at higher levels, meaning they roll out extensive solarization with millions of solar panels to generate enough. Some companies are generating enough energy from solar. In South Africa, there are hotels that depend exclusively on solar. That is a solar farm, massive. You have some that deploy wind technology. You have wind farms, creating wind turbines. Those options are okay. They're very expensive, and they have their own peculiar challenges. But when you have high machines and equipment, the best will still be the conventional sources, which is doable because you can generate enough megawatts through gas. And Nigeria is gas abundant. We have enough gas. So why can't we deploy the abundance of gas that we have to generate enough electricity? That's one. We have good, reliable rainfall. Hydro is natural, it's renewable. We have a lot of dams that have been abandoned. We have a lot of hydro projects that have been abandoned. We have those that are not really crystallized. We need to crystallize all those options. That is without ignoring the relevance of renewables. What I've always advocated is for us to manage all those married of sources of energy for us to be energy sufficient. That's what I always in your homes now. You have generation of the you have megawatts from the particular disco that you do. You have your inverter batteries by the side. You have your solar panel on the roof, and you have your generating set somewhere. So that is making sure you pack yourself up by the energy options that you have. You can't rely on a single source. That's what you're saying. For a country like Nigeria that is challenged, we need to amass megawatts from all available sources and every source that we can lay our hands on.
All right, Prof. Now back to the states, back to the subnationals. What more can be done to get state governments to act? You have indicated the fact that this is capital intensive, and that's understandable. You have also mentioned that the states do not necessarily have to bring the entire sum from their accounts. They could partner the private sector and get this done. So what can be done to get them on their toes and really deliver? Because obviously the national grid is not as strong as it should be.
The national grid is certainly not the way to go. And I said countries are backing up from the centralized grid. We cannot even be talking of the centralized national grid in the 21st century. It's not done. So it will never be sufficient. It will never be reliable because the world is going off grid.
So how do we get states to get on board and the other sector, I mean, the subnationals?
That's states in Nigeria should put their politics right and stop playing politics with the power sector. The only way to be, we can talk about the geometric in Abia. We can talk about certain independent power producers in Enugu. Things are happening in some states, but the states are not at the same levels. Some states are endowed, some are challenged. States like in the northern part of the country might be challenged because I've heard of the battery gas syndrome, where even the schools cannot really go to certain neighborhoods to connect to get them to pay electricity bills. They can't access those neighborhoods for meter readings and that's why nobody wants to invest in those kind of regime, those kind of terrain, unless they are sure they can recoup their investment with profit. And that said, any state
all right. All right, we're having some difficulty with the network now, and that challenge
Yeah,
is...
sorry. I'm sorry.
All right,
I
can hear you now. Yes,
Hello,
Prof.
can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. We have yes, please. We have some states. Some states are not prudent and transparent. States are not bankable. No investor will go and invest in some states, but once they put their money, they are not likely going to make profits. Some states to acquire land alone for business or to do business is challenging. Some states to do all kinds of table Gs, those kind of messy things. Some states will never honor their contractual obligations. Some states that tax again is not transparent. So we have issues in terms of the governance structure we have as a country. And if that the state is not going to be attractive, investors rather states that are stable financially, state that will honor their contractual terms, state that says I'm giving you so incentives, and those incentives are there. Valid state. Investors bringing $2 billion in the economy long term for 10 years, we have to start seeing signs that by the 11th of the 13th year, they have started making recovering recouping their investment. Like by the 15, 20 years, they are already in profit. But if the sign is that your state can never be that progressive, meaning your state can never be that business-centric, business-ready, they will not come. If there is money to be made, an average investor will go. There is a natural trend, including the power sector we're talking about. If there is money to be made from there, people will. The reason why they are not investing is because existing players, college, college, they are struggling. And no reasonable investor will go and join a sector where the players are struggling. That's why people go to the petroleum sector. That's because people will go to telecoms. There's money to be made there. People to fit it because they're making money.
All right, Prof.
If there's no money to be made in the power sector, you don't expect people to invest there. That's natural.
But I believe there's a lot of money to be made in the power sector as well, but only if all I's are dotted and all T's are crossed. Yes, as you've mentioned. I hear you, Prof. Yes, earlier.
Government structure and not as ready.
I hear you, Prof. Earlier you were talking about, some of the challenges encountered in the power sector. The fact that there are certain locations where operatives are even finding it difficult to go get their monies from consumers of electricity. And that brings me to a bigger issue of metering. Because if, for instance, all apartments, all locations are well metered, you don't necessarily have to visit a location. It's all digital. I mean, they wouldn't even have access to power if they have not paid, if they have not subscribed to it. So it means that there is a bigger and deeper challenge that has to be fixed for us to be able to also get it right in this other aspect. What do you say about that?
Definitely, there are things to be fixed. There are challenges and problems to be addressed before we get to track. You're talking about metering. There are several components, several dimensions to the issue of metering. I, for one, I've mentioned the issue of the politics of metering. But after the disco, on their home part are not kind of sincere enough, or rather, they are not really willing to let go estimated billing because they make a lot of money from estimated billing. That was my argument, and my argument is. So federal government said, oh, give meters, even when those meters are supplied through World Bank intervention or other intervention, for Nigerians to have meters free. They still pay. It's bad enough because even discos are supposed to be the owners of those meters. They're supposed to be the owners of those power poles. They're supposed to be the owners of those transformers, transmission oil, and the rest. What happens in reality? Nigerians who buy transformers. As I mentioned of a case online in the studio where a friend called me. He said after being in that test for months, if not years, the community contributed money to buy a transformer in the tune of 10 or 20 million naira. And he now said they approached the disco within that catchment area to come and energize it. And the disco said they cannot touch the transformer unless they donate it to them to help them manage it. Because ordinarily, it should be discos that will buy those transformers. But the discos are not solvent. I mentioned the fact that they are struggling. So the community purchased the transformers. And they had to write a letter, which was shown to me, that we social communities willingly, genuinely donated this transformer, this particular disco, and they are the owners, and they will not demand that they extricated their rights over the transformer. They contributed their money to purchase. Guess what? They thought with that the disco would come and energize it for them. They approached the disco for Nigeria to come and energize the 20 million naira transformer they bought for their community. They made the discos were driven there. At some point, the disco said, well, for them to energize it, they will need 10 million naira. And the community got upset that they bought this equipment themselves. You still want money paid to you to energize it, something that should be your direct responsibility.
That's sad reality, Prof.
Most listeners, they are the ones buying, you be the one to buy poles to have electricity in your neighborhood, you contribute money to repair the transformer if it gets spoiled. Those are the challenges that they face.
And huge challenges they are.
And the discos cannot, the discos cannot, because they are broke. If they take 1,000 megawatts from the Gencos through distribution, when they are remitting money, they under-remit. So meaning they supply power at a loss. And
so, Prof, it's sounding as though we need a complete overhaul. And I'm just curious as to who should handle the overhauling. Is it the president? Is it the minister? Should there be an independent body set up to run this?
There are people who are knowledgeable enough about this, and they say this intervention that we're talking about now is more than 15 years old. If you go online, go through YouTube, you see a lot of my intervention, well over 200 online. All these things I'm saying now, they're saying 15, 20 years. The same problems.
But we won't keep quiet, Prof, until we get solution, right? And that's the reason you're here. And that's the reason this is also at the front burner on This Morning today. That's the reason we're spotlighting this issue. And another matter I wanted to also bring up is the attitude of discos, for instance. I'm talking about when maybe there is an outage. Well, I'm usually concerned personally, the fact that there is no communication, because I assume, for instance, especially if you're on band A, that there are certain privileges you should have. For instance, I expect that one should be able to know when power will be out, when it will be restored, when it's out, what is the reason for it, and how long is it supposed to last for? Am I asking for too much?
You're not asking for too much because this, as I said, the new objective questions to be asking at Nigeria. Was it somebody ought to be blamed for this? I think the problems of Nigeria and Nigerians in the power sector is human. Human as ineptitude managers who are not doing the needful. Governance function that is weak. Put the right person or persons there, let them do the needful. We all know this thing. I went to a disco on behalf of a client, a legal matter. I entered the disco's office. The disco was running a generator. The disco that's supposed to supply electricity to you was running on generator.
Imagine that.
So what can we say? The problem is complicated and convoluted, and we can fix it when and if we are ready. We will fix these challenges. Somebody will put his feet down and things will go the right way. Let me give you an example. I believe in knowledge-based governance. I always cite the example of Soludo. When Soludo was deployed as the governor of Central Bank after being the special advisor to the president on economy, even an economic advisor, was deployed to the CBN governor. He said the banks should go and consolidate. They call it consolidation. We are using consolidation, using his surname. He said banks should capitalize to the tune of 25 billion naira years back. A lot of the banks struggled, some made, some went down. The banks recapitalized. Now, for the benefit of that intervention and that policy reform, that being a knowledgeable person, a professor of economics, being a seasoned economist, he brought that policy and was driving it himself. Nigerian banks now are now so strong, they are buying up banks in other countries in Africa, and in Europe and America, they are everywhere. And the banks are now also recapitalizing to the tune of 200 billion. The banking sector is great. We can't say this in the power sector. So who is driving the who is that Nigerian that is contesting, challenging, helping Nigerians to solve this problem, because these are human problems and they are solvable.
All right, Prof. Human problems,
so
and they are solvable. Yes, I really like your optimism, yes, the fact that you believe we can make a difference. There can be a change. And I, for one, look forward to us seeing that change, not just talking about it, not just hearing about it, but actually seeing it in reality. Prof, it's been great talking to you today. Professor Yemi Oke is a senior advocate of Nigeria, and he is a professor of energy and electricity law at the University of Lagos. Thank you for sharing with us this morning.